Hello everybody and welcome back to the ACSA Dynasty here on Maximum Football 2020. This is John J. Gaming on the mic, and today we are here with part 2 of the ACSA team reveals, where today we will be going over the Stars and Stripes Conference, which is the Maximum Football equivalent of Conference USA. So it's going to be a good one, so make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe if you happen to be new. And if you haven't checked out part 1 of this series, I went over the Sunbelt, or not the Sunbelt, but the Sunshine Conference, which is the Sunbelt equivalent, over on part 1. So definitely make sure you check that out after this video if you haven't seen it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and check out the teams in the Stars and Stripes Conference. So the first team that I want to go over in the Stars and Stripes Conference is the Darden University Jaguars. They call Marietta, Georgia home, and they're going to be replacing the Ruston Dogs in this dynasty. They're going to be spotting that blue and gold, and I have to say that those uniforms do look pretty darn good in the process. This is what their home unis are going to be looking like, donning that blue and yellow. Then same thing going with their away jerseys as well. Plus, here is what the helmets are going to look like for the Darden Jaguars in this dynasty as well. And you can't forget about the custom logo that I flashed on screen earlier as well. Now this team is definitely going to be pretty offensive oriented. A duo to keep an eye on is Mark Hunter and DeAndre McNeil, two of the highest rated players on this squad, making up the tandem. Mark Hunter being more of a lightning kind of running back, whereas DeAndre McNeil, who's a true freshman, he's going to be that power back that's going to get the tough goal line carries, as well as those situations where they need to run out the clock. And then they also have a pretty good quarterback in Tyrod Taylor. Yes, he goes back to college to play for the Darden Jaguars. He's pretty solid at quarterback. 79 overall dude with a good arm, some decent mobility at 54 speed. So definitely a very experienced quarterback leading this team. Others players to check out is Carl Byers and Josie Loving, who are two notable targets for Tyrod Taylor. And then we also have Kendall Thomas, who's the best defensive player on this team, a junior, weighing in at 6'1", 222 pounds, so definitely a very physical defensive back. And then this offensive line is going to be made up of some really good guys on the front. Jaleel Hawker, Braxton Hayden, and Mike Mule lead up this core of offensive linemen. So definitely a pretty solid team, as this is the Darden Jaguars in the Stars and Stripes Conference. We have the Franklinton Red Rams that call Franklinton, North Carolina home. No surprises here. The red is going to be their main color, as well as donning that black in the secondary. These are what their uniforms are going to look like. Very clean red and black. I love the black helmet that these guys are sporting, with that ram as the logo, at least in the Maximum Football games themselves, not in the logo itself. However, even though their uniforms do look really nice, I can't necessarily say the same about this football team. This is going to be a pretty young squad. A lot of these better players, for the most part, are sophomores and freshmen. Darius Johnson and Philip Hobson tied for the highest overall. And then, got a couple other 70 overall guys. Brett Hudsman is probably only senior that's notable on this team, and he's only a 70 overall. Terrell Walker's a sophomore, and then they have a true freshman at quarterback in Derek White. This is not going to be a team that's going to be expected to do much in the first couple of seasons, but let them grow together, so long as these guys stay out of trouble and they, remain disciplined, don't go into the transfer portal chasing, rings, so to speak. This could be a team that can definitely compete down the road for the Franklinton Red Rams, as this is what their team is going to be looking like going into Season 1 of the ACSA Dynasty. The Houston Tech Red Bears, coming out of Houston, Texas. They're going to also be donning the red and black in this dynasty, and they're also going to have that bear logo to support them as well. This is what their uniforms are going to look like. Very clean, not a lot of as much black as you would think, even though it is their secondary color, but I definitely love the simple look that they have here on the field. And then these are also going to be their secondary jerseys that they are going to be rocking in this series. And then finally, there is that beautiful white helmet with the Bear logo topping the whole uniform set off. As for this football team, one person to definitely keep an eye on for NFL aspirations is Kirk Hopkins. He's got good speed, and on top of that, also has some very good hands to complement that as well. It only is a true freshman as well, and being already such high regarded, this guy has an opportunity to make it to the professional leagues one day. Another person to also keep an eye on is Marcus Thomas. So this junior and freshman combo is going to be making a nice 1-2 punch for the Houston Tech Red Bears. Other players to look out for is Greg Neville, who is the soul of his defense at defensive back. And then also other players include Marcel Townsend, Jonathan Holloway. Got some good linebackers as well. They are going to have a pretty solid defense, if I say so myself. But this is what the Houston Tech Red Bears are going to be working with going into Season 1 of the ACSA Dynasty. After that, we have the Jackson University Jackers, who come from Jackson, Mississippi. Fun fact, this is the only team that I've received in the team submissions that was a Twitter request. So shout out to that one dude on Twitter, as the Jackson Jackers do make it into the ACSA Dynasty, coming out of Jackson, Mississippi. Now for this team, they're going to have gray and black. Not a lot of color here, trying to really intimidate guys with this uniform set right there, as this is what the home uniforms are going to look like. This is also what the away jerseys are going to look like as well. Nice, very clean set, if I say so myself, as well as this is what that beautiful helmet's going to have with the J on both sides of this football helmet. As for the team itself, though, this could actually be one of the worst teams in this dynasty. I'm not talking about just the worst team in the conference. They could be the worst team in the ACSA. Their best player is Jared Adams, but he doesn't even make it to a 70 overall. He's only a 69, still nice, but is a senior, so doesn't have much upside with him. They do have a quarterback in Devon Harrison, who is a sophomore and is going to definitely have some growing pains. They have a couple other guys that could make contributions, but I would not be surprised if it's going to be a long season, though, for the Jackson Jackers, at least for Season 1 of this dynasty. They're going to have to really focus in on getting some good recruits in to build this roster from the ground up. Now we move over to the opposite side of the country. We go to Las Vegas, Nevada, as we find the Las Vegas Aces football team here in the ACSA Dynasty. They also do have that red and black. There is quite a few teams in this conference actually that have red and black. I did not do that on purpose, I promise you, as all of these teams are submitted by the community, so always shout out to the community for that. This is what their home jerseys are going to be looking like, though. Despite having a black secondary color, still quite a bit of white on the home jerseys. But on actually the same thing for the away jerseys as well. Also a lot of white sporting this squad, as they have that red and white look. And then these is also what the helmets are going to be looking like here in the ACSA Dynasty. One person to definitely keep your eye on this football team, Camila Benjamin, an 80 overall sophomore, 6'5", but surprisingly does not weigh all that much. Needs to definitely fill out that frame, but definitely has some pro potential to him depending on how he grows and develops. He's going to have some targets to throw to, as well as Adam Haskin returns for his seniors campaign, and then also has John Scurley in the backfield ready to really hit somebody as well. Other players to note is the defensive tandem of Mika Stewart, Alex Rogers, and Jari Litlow, who are going to be guys that are going to harass, that front seven, going to really harass the run game, going into the season. And then Corey Henry is also a guy, if I could for sure develop, can be the heir apparent to Adam Haskins once he graduates. So definitely some guys to watch out for on this Las Vegas team. They could do something here. Also, another thing I want to point out, there's a three-way tie for the tight end position. Cole Kinlaw, Logan Partlow, Frank Pankey are all guys that haven't really separated themselves in spring ball. So that'll be a really interesting develop to see who's going to start at tight end for the Las Vegas Aces. Moving back over to the East Coast, we find the Black Bears, not to be confused with the Red Bears that came from Houston Tech. We now have the Black Bears from Louisiana Central University. They do call Baton Rouge home, although this actually should be Louisiana. I don't know why it said Virginia, but we're going to go ahead and change that. They do replace the old Norfolk Militia in this Maximum Football Dynasty and will be donning the black and silver. This is also what their uniforms are going to be looking like, black and silver. Really not much else to expect here, as this is also what their away jerseys are going to be looking like. A lot of white and gray with that bear on the helmet. For you guys to watch out for are all guys that are considered underclassmen. Eric Rivers is the best player on this football team, and he's a true freshman. Dude was in high school not too long ago in the local Baton Rouge area. He's going to be expected to carry a lot of the burden of his LCU football team early on. Another person to keep an eye out for is Daniel Durant. He had a tough freshman campaign, but he's looking like he's got some more weapons around him with the addition of guys like Eric Rivers. And then AJ Reed also comes in as a JUCO transfer, was allowed to play right away. Also, Carl Watson will be looking to protect his blind side. 336 pounds. A young team, but they look to improve, at least here in Season 1 in the ACSA Dynasty. Staying in the Deep South, we now move to the great state of Tennessee, where the Nashville University Generals play. And of course, they do call Nashville home. They got the blue, and then I got what they're supposed to be garnet. If it's not garnet, I'm not the best with colors, so you can go ahead and roast me for that in the comments section down below. But we got this star, trying to represent that general rank in our military academies, of course. As for what their uniforms are going to look like, they got the blue, and they got this garnet looking color. So even if it's off, these uniforms still look pretty cool with how the main color and the secondary color did end up turning out, here in Maximum Football 2020. Shout out to those guys, by the way, for making customization a lot easier so that I can bring you guys more Maximum Football 2020 content. As for what to expect this season, this is not going to be a very good team either. Joe Hampton is their best player at running back, so look to them to go to him early and often to try to generate offense. Adam Swan's also here as a senior, not the most talented guy in the world, but does bring experience. He's not going to embarrass himself, but you can't rely on him to win the game for you. You just got to hope that he doesn't lose it necessarily. What really separates them from the Jackson Jackers, even though they have a similar composition in their roster, is that they do have a little bit more experience on the top, and that puts them just a step above the Jackson Jackers. But again, this is going to be a team that's going to struggle to win games, and not to mention their future doesn't look bright with a lot of their top players getting ready to graduate after this season. So it'll be interesting to see what this Nashville team can do in Season 1. Going even deeper south, we have the Oxville Chargers, representing Oxville, Mississippi in the ACSA Dynasty. They're going to be donning that blue and gold and are also going to replace the Birmingham State Fire in this ACSA Dynasty. Here's what their uniforms are going to be looking like. Got the blue, and then they also got the gold. Very nice uniforms. Very reminiscent of what the San Diego Chargers, or as some heathens call it, the LA Chargers, when they moved from the great city of San Diego. This is what their home and away jerseys are going to look like, as this is what their helmets are going to look as well. Love the yellow on this helmet with the blue face mask. But let's go ahead and check out what this roster can do here in Season 1. Some guys to look out for. So they do have quite an offensive tandem to build off of. Delano Guthrie is a very solid player coming out of high school and is going to have some hype within the Stars and Stripes Conference. Other guys to check out is Timmy Bird. He's coming back after a promising freshman campaign. And then also has John Ike, who has been much improved as well. Benedrick Variel is also going to anchor this offensive line. Looking to be a blindside blocker for Timmy Bird to make sure that he doesn't get hit from behind while dropping back to pass or running some options, stuff like that. Malik Willis, I usually don't also talk about kicker, but this is a guy that definitely has a decent leg on him. Look for him to make some long field goals and maybe lay out a person or two as well in the special teams game. He's 246. He can definitely lay out a guy if he needs to. Now we move up to North Carolina, and what we find is another Red Rams football team. However, these guys are in Raleigh, North Carolina, but I would not be surprised to see a rivalry brew up between the Franklinton Red Rams that are also in North Carolina and these Red Rams that are in Raleigh, North Carolina. So expect a Red Ram Bowl at some point during the ACSA Dynasty. They got the similar colors as Franklinton too, so it could get pretty heated pretty quickly, except they have a lot more black in their uniforms too, so don't worry guys. When these two teams play each other, you will be able to tell the difference between who's winning and who is losing when that rivalry game does prop up, as they do also don the black helmets, full black, and a slightly different ram that is outside of the thumbnails, of course, for future ACSA videos. Looking up the Raleigh football team, they got a couple of guys that definitely could deserve some awards later on this season. Corey Davis looks like a very good offensive lineman, building off his freshman improvements. And then they have a running back tandem of Devon Hong, and we also have Jordan Kollick, who are going to be a great lightning and thunder duo in the backfield. Other guys to check out is Trey Molini, who is going to be their best defensive player on this team. Is going to be somebody that can do a little bit of everything, a Swiss Army knife on that football field, can stop the run and can do a good job at times in defending the pass as well in only his sophomore campaign. Then there's the wide receiver duo of Kyle Utter and Shaquille Byrne. Gotta give it to Shaquille Byrne. He's done a really good job of really mentoring Kyle Utter because he's looking like a very good receiver coming out of spring ball. Look out for him to really torch some defenses with his route running abilities, almost like a Larry Fitzgerald kind of player. Now for this next team in the Stars and Stripes Conference, we have a surprising migration of animals in the great state of Georgia, because this next team is the Savannah Bison, who reside in Savannah, Georgia for this ACSA Dynasty. They're going to be donning the black and red for this series. And then this is also what their colors are going to be looking like. Very nice colors representing Savannah, Georgia. This is what their home and away jerseys are going to look like. The helmet though, I'm going to go ahead and change up the helmet a little bit. Thought about the gray for a split second, but I'm going to change that to red to stay consistent with the other colors that are on this Savannah, Georgia uniform for the ACSA series. They also have some pretty talented players on this roster as well, and they're pretty young guys too. Their top 3 players are all freshmen and sophomore, and they can do a lot of damage. Got a 78 overall guy, 77 and 75. CJ Smith looks like something that could potentially take a top off the defense if the defensive backs are caught slacking. Deion Byrne can also do a pretty good job of covering defenders here in this conference. And they have Sebastian Young that they added as well, a true freshman running back that can definitely be a Frank Gore type of player and pick up those tough extra yards as well. Other guys that should be worth checking out is defensive lineman Roy Woodley, who could be a force in the middle of that defensive line. DJ Brendel is coming in as a true freshman and looks like a very promising red zone target for this football team. There's also another wide receiver in Carlos Clement, who's a senior on this team, is a Larry Fitzgerald kind of player, just very good route running, just not the fastest player in the world. And then of course there's this quarterback that is a question mark, Ben Epstein. He's played well in high school, but how does he respond to the collegiate level? Does he respond well, or does he flame out and potentially get benched later on in this season? But Savannah definitely has a very interesting football team to work with going into season 1 of this ACSA Dynasty. Moving things back over to the West Coast, we go to New Mexico for the first time in this ACSA team reveal, where the Hellhounds of southwestern New Mexico find themselves. They call Silver City, New Mexico home, and of course, You know, they got some desert colors to reflect that New Mexico landscape. Going to be donning that orange and black when they take the field in the ACSA Dynasty. This is also what their uniforms are going to look like. They can definitely blend in with the desert for sure. They definitely have some DVSU kind of vibes when I look at these uniforms, particularly when I go away. I wonder if their stadium, you know, if we see any home games from these guys in this series, that it will also have a DVSU vibe to it as well. Now, one notable difference between this team and the DVSU Dingoes, made popular by Not the Expert, is that this team will start out a lot better, but still is going to struggle in this first season. They do have one notable guy in Chris Stern, who's a junior running back, but he's not very fast. You know, definitely one of the slower teams in the ACSA. They do have an experienced quarterback as well and some experienced guys in general, but you know, this is going to be a team that will struggle during the course of the ACSA. I will not be shocked if they are in towards the bottom half of the Stars and Stripes Conference, at least for Season 1. So hopefully recruiting does a really good job, sell them on that early playing time, and they can improve from there. Out of the way, we'll now move on to the rival of the Las Vegas Aces in the ACSA Dynasty. Here in the Stars and Stripes Conference, we have Spring Creek, which is located in Spring Creek, Nevada. Not too terribly far from Las Vegas, Nevada, actually, and they will be donning the brown and silver for this dynasty, and they'll also be rocking with the Mooses here at Spring Creek University. This is also going to be what their uniforms are going to look like going into this season. This is what the home jerseys are going to look, as well as what the away jerseys are going to look. One notable difference is the home caption, you know, going to be representing that team name, representing the moose across the chest, whereas on the road, the people that go to Spring Creek away games are going to know that Spring Creek is here to not only take part, but also take over as well. As here are the helmets for the Spring Creek Moose in the ACSA Dynasty. This is also one of the better rosters in the ACSA. I would not be shocked if they potentially win this conference in Season 1. Their best player is an offensive lineman, which there's, you know, no worries about that, but they do have these guys right here, and Ben Key and Darius Cooks are going to be good tone centers for this football team, as well as they do have an infusion of freshman talent with guys like Rodney Mead, Benny Worship, BJ Mustafi, hopefully I did not just butcher that, and Jamal Barr, who looked like a very promising player in the Las Vegas high school ranks, took them from Las Vegas, and is here at Spring Creek, ready to be the starting quarterback for a team that could make some noise in the Stars and Stripes Conference as well. So a lot of good players on this team. I would not be shocked if they won the Stars and Stripes in Season 1. We go over another first in the ACSA Dynasty. The first team that is revealed that is from the state of Oklahoma. We have the Tulsa Christian College Pioneers in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Our first Christian school, I believe, in the ACSA Dynasty. They're going to have the orange and blue, you know, to have that pioneer kind of mindset, you know, really trying to be trailblazers in the Stars and Stripes Conference. This is what their home and away jerseys are going to be looking like. Very bright, one of the brighter jerseys in at least this conference. I'm not going to comment for the ACSA. I'm not trying to have any spoilers just yet, you know, for later team reveal episodes that are coming down the line. But this is what their home and away jerseys are going to look like, as well as what their helmets are going to look like in the ACSA series as well. A few players to keep an eye on is J.J. Derville, who came from Norman, Oklahoma, actually, from the Norman High School ranks, and is going to be the best player right away on this Tulsa Christian football team. And then Matt Tabeo is going to be a senior layer who is the heart and soul of this offense. You know, he's got some decent speed on him too, so look at him to make, you know, some really good plays this season. Then we got John Legrand, who is a Luke Kuechly kind of player. You know, if you get him at a great value brand kind of place, you know, he can definitely make some plays for you as well. Other players to keep an eye on as well is TJ Reed, who's a very experienced quarterback, as well as the defensive back tandem of Todd Coach. and Troy Holt, who are young guys but look to make some noise this season. Jordan Hill is also a true freshman but looks to be a menace on that defensive line. And then Cameron Zingale is going to be a real anchor for this offensive line as well. The Houston Tech Red Bears, coming out of Houston, Texas. They're going to also be donning the red and black in this dynasty, and they're also going to have that bear logo to support them as well. This is what their uniforms are going to look like. Very clean, not a lot of as much black as you would think, even though it is their secondary color, but I definitely love the simple look that they have here on the field. And then these are also going to be their secondary jerseys that they are going to be rocking in this series. And then finally, there is that beautiful white helmet with the bear logo topping the whole uniform set off. As for this football team, one person to definitely keep an eye on for NFL aspirations is Kirk Hopkins. He's got good speed, and on top of that, also has some very good hands to complement that as well. It only is a true freshman as well, and being already such high regarded, this guy has an opportunity to make it to the professional leagues one day. Another person to also keep an eye on is Marcus Thomas. So this junior and freshman combo is going to be making a nice 1-2 punch for the Houston Tech Red Bears. Other players to look out for is Greg Neville, who is the soul of this defense at defensive back. And then also other players include Marcel Townsend, Jonathan Holloway. Got some good linebackers as well. They are going to have a pretty solid defense, if I say so myself, but this is what the Houston Tech Red Bears are going to be working with going into Season 1 of the ACSA Dynasty. And now, the last team to be revealed in the Stars and Stripes Conference, we have Texas Rio Grande Valley, home of Los Varejos, paying homage to that Central American heritage, as they do call Edinburgh, Texas home, which is relatively close to the Texas-Mexico border. This team is going to be rocking the silver and orange over the course of this dynasty, as this is what their uniforms are going to look like. Even though they do have orange as a secondary color, they don't necessarily have that much orange unless you go to their away jerseys. Of course, they got a lot of orange, paying homage to that desert, that is in that part of the country as well. As for the non-thumbnail logo, got the luchador mask, I want to say, to again pay homage to that Central American heritage. A few players to keep an eye on as well is junior wide receiver AJ Thomas. And then we also have guys like Levante Brinson, who could be a pretty solid dude as well on that offensive line. Other players to keep an eye on, plenty of targets for our starting quarterback, who I'll go into later. Darren Mooney, I'm not going to even try to say that last name, and Michael Barnes, all guys with experience too. So while not the most talented team on paper, they do bring a lot of experience. So if they're in close game situations, I wouldn't be surprised if they win the vast majority of them. Although we do have a younger quarterback in Michael Bodine, who does have promise but does need time to grow and develop. So that'll be a quarterback situation over in Texas Rio Grande Valley to definitely keep your eye on over the course of the ACSA Dynasty. So guys, that is going to wrap things up here in part 2 of the ACSA team reveals here on Maximum Football 2020. If you enjoy the content, make sure you smash that like button as well as hit subscribe if you happen to be new. Also, make sure to check out part 1 if you haven't seen it, where I do go over the Sunshine Conference, which is the Sun Belt equivalent in Maximum Football 2020. And for part 3, which should be dropping at this time tomorrow, is going to be the Rocky Mountain Conference for the ACSA Dynasty, and is the equivalent to the Mountain West here in Maximum Football 2020. So until then, I hope you guys enjoyed the content, and I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.